Now we come to a big highlight of this conference, the first of three tremendous panels we're going to have today. This is called the political panel. And it's a tradition here in the New Orleans Conference, have conservative, liberal, and libertarian speakers opposing each other, basically on principle, not getting down to personal or politics, but on the principles that found this country and how they're applied today. Let me introduce the participants now one by one. On the near right of the stage, right center, Karl Rove served as senior advisor to President George W. Bush from 2001 to 2007 and deputy chief of staff in the second term. At the White House, he oversaw the Office of Strategic Initiatives, Political Affairs, Public Liaison, Intergovernmental Affairs as Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. And there's one quote I want to say from Michael Barone of U.S. News and World Report. No presidential appointee has ever had such a strong influence on politics and policy, and none is likely to do so again anytime soon. Now, on the near left, you see they're speaking afterwards, so I'm going to just give you a little bit of their information about their about them at the beginning, and then introduce them a little bit more later on. I have to find the right page, excuse me. I don't have it. So Howard Dean, of course, is the leading guide of the Democratic Party victory that swept to the power of both houses of Congress this last year and the presidential victory. So the Democrats have complete control of the levers of power in Washington, D.C. now, and he has had a 50-state onslaught to make sure that that would happen. So representing the Democrats on the near left there, Howard Dean. Now, as Charles Krauthammer said, the major parties are fighting in a football field between the 40-yard lines by necessity because they need to have the majority vote to control the levers of power. They cannot feed to the extreme sides, but we do have an extremist in our presence. He is neither far left nor far right, but I've put him on the left side, stage left, your right. He is the author of 4 books, including 2 Crisis Investings and The International Man, head of Casey Research, gold mine expert, and also political gadfly. Welcome back, Doug Casey. Now, gentlemen, you may take your seats, and I will begin. I will join you in a couple of minutes after the opening softball question. Last 3 years I've hosted this panel. I'm going to do it basically the same way with a nice icebreaker question about political philosophy, and then we'll get into some fundamental questions about Constitution, about the direction of this country. Last year we had Ann Coulter and Susan Estrich. The year before that, we had Newt Gingrich and Susan Estrich. And always I like to begin these panels by saying, how do you in the audience identify yourself? And you only have 3 choices: conservative, liberal, or libertarian. Now, I'm going to ask the first, how many of you call yourselves conservative? I'd say half, maybe a little more. How many call yourselves liberal? That's in the new modern sense of liberal. I see 4. Okay, there you go. And libertarian, almost equal to conservative. So I think some people voted twice on that question. And in full disclosure, I ran for Libertarian Party, Virginia State House of Delegates 12 years ago. I lost. So that is my experience and background. The first question I want to ask is, I'm going to start with Karl Rove on this and work down the line. I'm going to have a new person answer the question first, so it's not always in this order. But Karl Rove wrote an interesting column recently about he and George Bush had book reading contests, 80, 100 books a year, and they were substantial books. But I want to go back further than just the last year. When you 3 were young men, how did you develop your philosophy about politics? And I'll say perhaps it was, say, Barry Goldwater or Ayn Rand for freedom-oriented people, John Kennedy, was it Adam Smith? What are the most influential books that developed your political philosophy? And then I'll come and sit and join you. Karl Rove?
Interesting question. I actually am writing about this in my own book, which comes out next February, $29.95 from Amazon.com. But my editor asked me to write on exactly that question, and so I have the first book I can ever remember reading called Great Moments in History. But I came of age in the late 50s and early 60s, and I was a nerd, so I read a lot. Mm-hmm. And The Conscience of a Conservative.
All right.
I was given a book by Milton Friedman at the age of 12, and it turned me on to Adam Smith. And then I read Witness, which I found to be absolutely riveting and horrifying. So those, I also fell into the habit of reading the Federalist Papers every couple of years, starting when I was my late teens, my late preteens, early teens.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Dean?
Well, first of all, let me start off by pandering to what's obviously a hostile audience by saying I was actually supportive of Barry Goldwater when I was 15.
And then it went wrong. It went all wrong after that, Howard.
I went to the convention in San Francisco and saw Rockefeller get booed off the stage by the right wing. It was a very interesting experience. My political philosophy really doesn't come from books. It comes from personal experience. My experience as a doctor, I think it was pretty formative during the Vietnam War when our government wasn't telling the truth to the American people, which I thought was not a good thing. And of course, it happens on both sides. But I have a very strong belief in social justice. That's why I'm a Democrat. I also have a strong belief in capitalism. I worked on Wall Street for a couple of years, so we'll have an interesting discussion this morning about how you make those two work together.
Doug?
Well, I find it interesting that either one of you two people can talk about philosophy because I don't believe you have any. The fact of the matter is that the Democratic Party, I prefer it to the Republican Party because at least they do have a philosophy. It's rotten to its core, it's destructive, and it's stupid from the point of view that stupidity means inability to predict consequences of actions. But at least they have a philosophy such as it is. But the Republicans are even worse because at best they say they believe in free markets and free minds, but everything they do is like what the Democrats are, but not quite as much of it. So they're hypocrites. So these two parties are the total abnegation of philosophy. So I don't know what you people are talking about.
You've got to talk about books now.
No, he'd rather just go on the assault. I admire this man. I like your technique. Avoid the question and go straight for the opponent. Go, attack, hit hard.
I'm actually affronted. This is the problem with politics today. It's that it has this patina of legitimacy, but it's totally corrupt sepulcher. How can you people talk about these things?
You know, frankly, with all due respect, you don't know what my philosophy is, so you come out here and insult both of us. That's
okay.
What are you talking
about?
I know you're trying to be
exactly
a provocateur.
What your philosophy
but
is.
second of all, look, this country, based on our Constitution, our philosophy has allowed you to live in 4 different countries, 175 countries, and live in 12, and live in 4 countries simultaneously today. We live in a great country based on a great philosophy of freedom.
Well, look, Karl, you're well known as being a superb rhetorician. I'll give you that. That's one of your pluses. But the fact is, everything you've said.
I feel validated as a human being now. I really do.
Well, don't,
Casey.
because
really deeply validated.
Because it's said that you were Bush's brain. Okay, I'm not sure.
By liberals who wanted to diminish George Bush, but that's happy. You're happy to follow what the liberals say anytime you want to. Howard, you believe I'm Bush's brain too, don't you?
I don't know. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I would sue anybody that accused you of that. Quite frankly, you seem smart.
Pardon me. I'm going to try to regain control of this.